everybody, welcome to Capital of Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Branch.
Rob Jarrell.
And today we're going to recap this past Friday's Premier Boxing Champions card, which aired on Spike TV, part of their Friday Night Lights Out series, which they showcase MMA, kickboxing, and boxing. Great news for all combat fans. But on this card, we had a triple header. On our preview video, we only covered Sean Porter and what was supposed to be Roberto Garcia. We'll get into that. And then we also talked about Berto-Lopez and Andre Berto. During the card, we got a few surprises. Roberto Garcia apparently had a very tough time making weight, ended up having to go to the hospital, no-showed the weigh in. They called Eric Bonet in on less than 24 hours notice to fight Sean Porter. And then also because that fight ended early, which we're going to cover why and all that good stuff, we got a Chris Arreola sighting, and there was a whole lot of them. A whole lot of them. But we might touch on that one a little bit.
He's fat.
Yeah, real fat. So much so that his handlers didn't even want him on TV. That says a lot. Like when you got somebody who's well known already, and they're like, "Look, we don't want y'all to put this on TV." They ended up doing it anyway. He looked terrible
Because he's fat,
among other things. But
mainly because he's fat.
fat.
He can fight, but he was fat.
I haven't been that big of a fan, but hey, he gets the job done. Let's get into the card though. Eric Bonet was called in on less than 24 hours notice to fight Sean Porter and gave a very spirited effort until the end. Take it away, Rob.
All right, so this was, again, it was an unexpected surprise because we know that Sean Porter was preparing for Roberto Garcia. Weight issues, drained himself, probably came down from a high weight. We know that's a no-no for fighters. It eventually takes a toll where you either can't make the weight or you're just going to take some damage after, if you try to fight.
Yeah.
So we got Sean Porter came in versus a South American champion. I can't remember.
Was he from Venezuela?
No, I don't think it's Venezuela. It's one of those. I just can't remember exactly where it's from.
South American.
Yeah, he's basically a South American welterweight champion or ex-champion. Good fighter, made some money. He came out there and gave it all he had versus a guy that one day notice. Of course, there's a difference, and comment was made. There's one thing where you stay in shape, and then there's another one where you're actually training for a fight.
Right. And Eric Bonet was in decent shape. He was not in fight shape. Those of you guys who've been in the ring know the difference between fight shape and just in shape.
And I think they actually gave him a pound or two because it was late notice. I think it was like 148 or something like that.
Good for them.
Like 140, 149, $450,000. I take the fight on one day's notice. But anyway, Sean Porter, while he did get the knockout in the 5th round,
yep.
I can't really say there was any improvement.
Yeah, that was really disappointing. We were talking off camera, especially during the fight, and I was telling Rob that it seems that all of the good things we saw in him in the Paulie Malignaggi fight was more of a one-time thing, like an aberration. He got slightly better in between the two Julio Diaz's fights. He didn't look that great against Devin Alexander, even though he got the job done. Then he looks great against Paulie Malignaggi. Then he looks so-so against Kell Brook, and once again so-so against Eric Bonet. Granted, this guy came in on less than 24 hours notice, but this guy's a former world champion.
That's right.
So he should have really shined on this guy and been very impressive with his performance. Instead, we got a tooth and nail battle that, while entertaining for the fans, is not what you want when you're on the hunt for a title.
Now, it could be because he was preparing for Roberto Garcia, got Eric Bonet. That's so crazy to say. Eric Bonet. So we could look at it in that way. If he had to take what he planned for and assess to an opponent that he had no, he didn't.
Right.
Because they were going to look at a bunch of different guys and they settled on Eric Bonet.
Right. I think Kareem Mayfield was one of them.
Kareem Mayfield, who normally fights at 140. Actually, not that much different of a style, but it still showed that he's susceptible to a stiff jab, which he needs to learn. And he did it a little bit, but not a lot, where he moved, instead of moving back and forth and lunging on his punches, going side to side.
Yeah. With that, you can tell he like trained with Manny Pacquiao for a long time because they do a lot of similar things. His skill and talent level just isn't as high as Manny, so he can't get away with those same mistakes like Manny can.
That's right.
So winging wild shots from the outside, like it did against Kell Brook, won't serve him well going against the higher caliber fighters.
Lack of patience in his fighter, and then I'm not sure you have to slow yourself down because he has an excellent motor. It's just that you have to show a little bit more patience, especially when you have a guy buzzed or hurt.
Right.
Now, eventually, again, he got him out. He got him out of there. He did what he was supposed to do.
Right.
It was an exciting fight, but there was some punishment that he honestly did not have to take in that fight.
Yeah, that's true. Like Rob said, if he was a little bit more patient, used a little bit more lateral movement, and another thing that I didn't like, he wasn't as accurate as I think he could be. Like I said, when usually he slaps a lot with his hooks. He was back to doing that. But when he fought Paulie, everything was landing flush. Even when he did lunge from far out, he was still catching them flush. He wasn't catching Bonet flush. He didn't catch Kell Brook flush. He rarely caught Devin Alexander flush. So that's one of those things he's got to work on, is landing flush shots. Because even with all of that, he has still stopped 14 out of 16 opponents within the first 5 rounds.
Right. And he has the strength.
So the strength and power is there. If he can just shore up that technique a little bit more, this guy could be very, very dangerous. This guy could be top level. And he's almost there. I mean, he was there at one point. So in order for him to stay there, he works on those few things we mentioned, and he is a consistent or a continual title holder. Like, he can hold on to his belt for a while, not just win it and lose it, or become a challenger and get outboxed by guys or outfought by guys. He can get a title, fight some good credible guys, and win those fights, and possibly be one of the young stars of the sport, if he can get all that stuff taken care of. So, with that in mind, we had a Chris Arreola sighting. A whole lot of a Chris Arreola sighting.
He came in at what, 270 pounds?
It was like 260 something, I think.
I'm sorry, it was 262.
Yeah. Hey, it was pretty close. When, we've seen him in the 220s, 230s, and still looks pretty fat.
He's not going to be a chiseled marble statue. He's going to be, he is what he is, but 262 for him is just outrageous.
Right.
I mean, the same could be said for Orlando Solis and
so many other people.
Yeah,
But the thing is, it served to, I guess, as a teachable lesson. He's had many of them about his weight, but once again, he had a guy who should have been out of there in like the first round.
And that showed because
he hurt him badly.
Yeah.
But he ends up going 8 rounds. And looking bad in going those 8 rounds, because that guy was Charles somebody? Harper.
Charles Harper. See, we can't even remember his name.
And he rocked Arreola several times. And that shouldn't have happened. But, if Arreola one day wants to take his career seriously, like he keeps saying he wants to, then this stuff happens. And then he wonders why he can't win a belt.
But he came off, in his defense, he was coming off an injury, so he probably wasn't in the best shape, or tried to stay in shape after. What was it, an elbow or shoulder?
During the Stavern fight?
Yeah. After that, there was some kind of injury after that.
Something happening.
I want to say it was an elbow injury, but that doesn't stop you from walking on or running on a treadmill.
Or even running outside. I hate running on a treadmill. I don't recommend it for people.
No.
Get your butt outside and run. But, that's neither here nor there.
We're not as trainers.
Right. And that's it. Main event. Berto-Lopez, Andre Berto, welterweight showcase fight. We got Andre Berto now in his 3rd fight with Virgil Hunter. He's been having some injuries, not able to work as much as he would want to. Probably hasn't gotten the amount of fights that he would want to have. But he's still, you know, one of those guys with name value. So he gets the main billing on this card against someone who is tough, but someone that he should beat, like Josecito Lopez. Something we said in the preview video. If you haven't watched it, watch it. You'll see what we're talking about. Actually, that was a really bad... No, we did a good quality video for that one. I'm thinking about the very first one.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just those type of fights where he should look good against someone who's been in there with names. And I think it was Antonio Tarver who said it, like the people that have beaten Josecito Lopez are champs. So in order for Andre Berto to say, hey, I'm in this conversation, he needs to put on an emphatic performance and get Josecito Lopez out of there. He did that. Took a slow start, but he did get the stoppage. A lot of people didn't like the stoppage, especially since it was in Lopez's home area. But nonetheless, it was looking like the beginning of the end. But I do think he should have got a little bit more chance to defend himself.
Yeah, he definitely should have got that chance to defend himself. But you could like really see that at a certain point, Josecito Lopez, I would have given. He was ahead on all the out of all the scorecards.
Yeah.
Going into 6th round.
It's like the 5th or 6th round. I think it was the 6th.
I think it was the 6th round. He was ahead on all the cards, rightfully so, because if you really watch that fight, he did very good body work.
Yeah, excellent body work.
He used his longer reach, not necessarily faster, but he used that longer reach to stabbing jab to the stomach and the chest to kind of keep Berto off him. He even threw those long punches around Berto's elbows, which if you watch, Berto had he abandoned the shoulder roll a few fights back, especially after he got with Virgil Hunter.
Yeah.
But when you have your fists up here, it's almost like he was squared up. But you cannot let uppercut. Yes, I understand the uppercut, but not straight down the pipe. Especially for a guy, an experienced veteran, and Berto is a veteran, but experienced veteran like Josecito Lopez, because he would punch around the elbows or punch directly through his guard.
Yeah, his high guard was not tight at all. Like Rob just demonstrated, his elbows were way up here. There's nothing protecting down here. This is all wide, so you can go straight through here or around, which Josecito Lopez did many times. So that's something that, being the scientist that Virgil Hunter is, I know they're going to work on that. So I'm not really worried about it. It's up to Berto to actually do it, but I'm sure that Virgil is going to work on that with him.
Now, Berto has never been one to have a great deal of head movement. So at that point, knowing that he doesn't have the reflexes to side to side duck, if you're gonna have and this is for anyone who is going to who fights, who does, be real with yourself. If you don't have great head movement, you're gonna have to learn to block.
Yeah.
It's Arthur Abraham does it very well.
Winky Wright
did it. Yeah, Winky Wright. Anyone. It's literally a slight movement, bam, to keep. And I'm not saying it's going to work every time, because some guys hit it faster. You just have great timing. But it's literally a 2-inch move, and you have your gloves.
You also want to keep your elbows lower. I'm not as tall as Rob. Yeah. So you see that? Winky Wright was famous with it. He also hunched his torso in, so those elbows were very, very. You see, that's a lot tighter there. The window is a lot smaller than it was when he was doing it originally. Go back to that. The original.
This doesn't work.
Now go into, you see how much different that is? Lamont Peterson is actually another one who does that as well. Unfortunately, that does let your opponent get shots off, but they don't land as often in that posture versus the one that Berto was using.
Now, Berto did a very good job with his counter right hand, though.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he started landing that counter right hand, you see him start to slowly let his hands go all together.
Yeah, he was waiting a lot early on. But you could see when he did let his hands go, he's got some tremendous hand speed. And every time he landed, Josecito Lopez had to reset or move out of the way. He wasn't sitting there like, oh, you can't hurt me. He was like, oh, I need to reset. I need to move out the way. So once he really started putting those combinations together, you could kind of see the fight slowly going towards Berto's way, even if he wasn't completely winning those rounds.
And to be honest, I personally think it was a matter of time. Josecito Lopez lost to Maidana, which he took some punishment. He tried to come back. He was in with a sharpshooter in Canelo, where he was not only not faster or more skilled, but he was also much smaller.
Right.
So I'm not saying that he can't take punishment, but he was knocked down twice. I believe he would have been knocked out because that second right hand, took one punch?
Yeah.
I can't really say that it was early. As a ref, I might have given him one more chance.
Yeah.
But to take that one punch right off the
first knockdown?
Yeah. Right off the first knockdown, tell him to come together, and it was an immediate right hand, which he went down. I don't know if he was trying to buy time or it was really something that really hurt him again, but
I think he was still seriously hurt from the first knockdown. That right hand he took from Berto was dead on. The spacing was perfect. The extension was all the way there. That was a textbook right hand from someone who was ducking right into it.
So while it may be a little early, to try to give him the benefit of the doubt, yes, it was his home area, but you can see where he was severely hurt, and it was a possibility he could have took some unnecessary punishment.
Yeah, so it's better that they err on the side of caution than to let somebody go and end up being seriously hurt or worse, killed. As we've seen lots of people in the combat sports die from in-ring competition. So next for Berto, I was thinking about all this in the car. Maybe a rematch with Victor Ortiz. They had a very good fight a few years ago back in 2011. And in training for the rematch, we had that whole fiasco with the testing and him failing the test, even though they said the amount in his system was not even anywhere remotely close to actually enhancing his performance. But it was in his system at some point, so I think that's why they scrapped that. Get them back together. They're both on the comeback trail.
Or Berto might want to try to avenge the loss he had to Soto Carras.
That too. Or even Robert Guerrero. He's got options. All of those were good fights. All the rematches should be good fights because both, Guerrero has worked on a lot of things as well, so we probably get a different fight. Soto Carras is Soto Carras, so maybe with two good shoulders, Berto can take that fight. And then Victor Ortiz, he's been off for a while, but he still looks to be in tremendous shape. So we'll see what happens next with Berto. We're going to watch regardless, so there it is. That's it for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button on here. Share it with your friends, all your boxing friends, on any forums you're on and any of that stuff. Follow us on Facebook, Capital of Combat, Google Plus, same name. You can hit us up on our email, capitalofcombat@gmail.com. You can shout us out in the comments section. Let us know your thoughts. And if you guys have any questions, hit us up. We add you to the Combat Mailbag. Subscribe if you haven't. And you can see all of our series like the Technical Toolbox and, like I said, the Combat Mailbag. We got a ton of stuff for you, including extensive coverage of the granddaddy of them all, the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. So that's it for this episode, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
This is round one, and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is come at a cost. My fists are on fire, I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage, keep thinking that it's a game. I kick rhyme, hurricane. I told them I don't play, I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.